curious, well, there we go. Got it. But does
Now
anybody,
you're on, now you're on, Brad.
all righty. Well, Cheryl is not here, but we're talking, and we're going to be talking about neurodiversity and creating welcoming environments for our courses. Is kind of what we want to talk about today. And please feel free to throw any ideas or questions you have in the chat, and I'll keep eyes on the conversation, is what Brandon says. And Brandon, you mentioned that you might have some experience in this space of creating welcoming environments. I'm kind of curious if there's anything people want to share around creating environments for people.
So I think one of the largest or one of the easiest entry points to kind of the design and creation of welcoming environments is just kind of looking at the framework of universal design for learning. That is kind of the foundation that I would start with for anyone. I don't really like the universal portion of it, simply because I really like looking at any neurodiverse individual as an individual with individual needs. But universal design for learning really is going to look at things like, when you design an online course, don't look at huge blocks of text, right? If you're just copying and pasting your Word documents into your learning management system, you're going to have a bad time, and so are your students, whether they are neurotypical or neurodiverse. Looking at presenting things in a multitude of different ways, right? Giving students a different way to engage, a different way to express themselves. So that's kind of the entry point that I look at for any kind of design when it comes to an online course at the very least, but honestly, even an in-person course, really kind of varying your content and your presentation, particularly when it comes to things like lectures. If you record a 90-minute lecture and want your students to watch that, most students will not, and I almost guarantee you someone like myself, where I have ADHD, I will not. It will probably, after about 5 minutes, I'm gonna go to a different tab, or you're gonna say something that piques my interest, and I'm gonna Google it and go down a rabbit hole, and I'm gonna learn a ton. But I'm not going to hear the rest of the lecture. And so keeping me engaged with a variety of different modes is something that I think is very important. Now, I kind of want to pause and see if we have any questions, or see if Brad has anything to say, or Deanna, if you have anything to kind of throw out there as well.
Yeah, thanks so much,
gloss
Brandon.
over UDL. So
yeah, no, this is so great. I threw a link into about Universal Design for Learning so you can take a look at it, kind of see what's out there. Thank you, Brandon, for kind of getting this all started today. And you're right. It's trying to think about those multiple means of representation, multiple means of action and expression, multiple means of engagement. How can we engage our students, and how do we create those welcoming environments to get back? Oh, I'm a sucker for graphic infographics. Thank you so much, Kathleen. And I love that we're kind of have a conversation going in our chat talking about font colors and the ideas of choices, and how I'm glad that one of the people mentioned templates that are out there, and trying to develop templates is something that I do feel is a great welcoming practice when our courses are the same. Let me stop that. And when our course is kind of the same layout, you know where to navigate to go to one place or go to another. And so I think those welcoming environments that are going to have really strong navigations, almost templatize the different pieces, are probably a good way to go. Now, I know that we have some other ones in their love-hate relationship with templates. Ha, you're right. I agree. And Deanna, is there anything you'd like to add about some of the work you've done?
Yeah, Brandon is going to love me. I mean, I'm big into templates, but just because I try to create a little bit of a landing place for my instructors that is accessible already, and they don't have to worry about, oh, is this font accessible? Are these colors, providing enough contrast? So we actually at CU Boulder, when I started back in 2019, oh my God, I already forgot. I actually went ahead and created the templates that we're using right now for our courses, and we try to keep all of those little accessibility guidelines in mind. Also, Brad being a UDL expert, he actually takes care of that as well. Well, you're an expert. But yeah, just providing a different means of representations is really important. Keeping those videos short. If you're gonna present something that is 90 minutes long, I get it. Some topics are like really extensive. Just cut it into short pieces, not only for those, students that have ADHD, but just in general, it's exhausting to be in front of a computer, watching a lesson for 90 minutes. That's really exhausting. And it give a sense of accomplishment to your students when they can actually finish a video that is just 5-10 minutes long. Yeah, I finished one. I'm gonna grab a drink. I'm gonna come back and watch another one. Even though it's just part of a series, for them that's huge, and that actually helps you with the student engagements as well. And it increases the participation of your students in your classes. Templates should be flexible enough to be accessible, though. Oh yeah, absolutely. Templates are definitely flexible. They can actually change them. The problem that we have faced many times when it's HTML templates and we have instructors that want to change them and they're not very well skilled on HTML, good Lord alive, it creates a mess. It makes things worse. So that's why we at CU Boulder, we actually have like 3 tiers of templates. The one that is very simple, one that is intermediate, and one that is more advanced. Our team is amazing and work on those 3. And that way it gives that flexibility for students that, instructors that are more, versatile in HTML, and those ones that like, nope, I don't know anything about that. I don't want to touch it.
Brad and Deanna, this is Greg, your facilitator. I'm just curious, I'm just throwing this out there. It seems like we have almost 50 participants, which is great. I'm just kind of curious. We kind of have the choir here in our presentation. Just kind of curious how different colleges, universities communicate and support this idea, right, that we're talking about. I mean, how do you communicate this one-on-one with a faculty member? How does the university as a whole communicate this? Anybody out there willing to share kind of what your university, what you do personally in terms of making things accessible and promoting it and so on? Speak up whenever you would like.
So this is Kate. I teach for FRCC, and I'm also a department chair for CCC Online, so I can speak to both of those. Both of them are in the CCC system. CCC Online, classically, they have an entire template system, an entire course, a course shell. They just drop it into place. The learning designers are really the only ones who touch it, and it's frankly not very flexible in terms of learning design. It's frustrating for me because I teach web design and I want to get my fingers in there, but it's okay. I can breathe through it. FRCC, they approach things differently. The accessibility part is they do address it, but they offer a lot more flexibility, or they have in the past, to the faculty member or the instructor who's building the course. And they do have their, make sure that the course is accessible, and here's how to make sure that the hierarchy in a document's correct, and that sort of thing. But I've seen the entire sliding scale there. It's really interesting for me to compare. I like this conversation about, looking at it in terms of the neurodivergent student, because I was one and I am one. And so, yeah. And yes, that's, you know, that was another thing Kay just brought up. How many institutions are talking about neurodiversity instead of disability? It's not, accessibility is not just for, oh, those poor people, which is BS. No, accessibility improves the access to this information for everybody. I mean, all the way across the line. You have a website or a web page that is accessible. Well, that means it's also going to be able to be crawled better by search engines, which means better traffic, more traffic. So anyway, I can get on a roll and keep going, but I'm going to let other people talk now.
Oh, thank you so much,
Thank you.
Kathleen, for that. I just wanted to put that in there. And, you know, we got some other things, you know, we fail to get to the student experience and feedback. Well, I'm so glad feedback was brought up as a way of creating that welcoming experience. It's so important. And I'm glad we're having those conversations about how we think about these different areas. You know, I put some links into chat if we want any of them. And I know Cheryl's not here. We all wanted to see her and what she was going to be doing. But I did want to link to her work. And so there's a University of Washington Do It Center link in there if you're ever looking for it. And then there is an article that I found really useful personally, 20 tips for teaching accessible online courses, which really helps with what Kathleen was just talking about, you know, and how we're talking about different areas that we could go into. So it's really useful. And oh, Deanna just put in a great thing. If some things for accessibility to think about are really that text formatting. Oh, I'm sorry, Deanna, you can speak to it.
No, that's okay. I actually wanted to make a comment. I didn't know how to say her name because it's like a whole name, about her teen having a lot of disabilities. I'm not wanting to have, you know, that label, and I totally agree with that. I struggled when I was growing up with that label, that when I went to college, I did not want to identify myself as having a disability. And honestly, now that I am a mom of a kiddo that has disabilities as well, I have matured more in that concept that I don't believe in the term disability, but just different learners. He's amazing. Give him a car, he will put it apart and he will actually be able to put it together without a blueprint. I cannot do that for the life of me. But he's not able to read or to identify certain numbers. Like now he's in therapy, he's able to, but he just learns differently. He's a kinesthetic learner. Give him something, you know, touch it and he will learn it. But try to give him a book for him to learn how to do that, he won't be able to actually learn it that way. So for me, it's not actually having a disability, it's just he learns differently.
Well, thanks
And
for
those
sharing.
things that I actually put there, those are 8 basic steps that I put together. I've been studying accessibility for over 10 years, for like basic things that you can do to ensure that your content is as accessible as possible, or basically accessible for all users. The first one is text formatting, you know, typical, not use sans serif, use sans serif fonts, use 12 or more if it's a Word document, 18 or more if it's a PowerPoint, 19 or more if it's a HTML page. The headings, use those headings that are embedded in all of the applications nowadays, have the heading styles. The tables, you know, the tables is 2 basic things. One is have a header on the table, and another one is don't have blank cells or merge cells. Descriptive hyperlink is another thing that we see a lot, because we see the click here or visit our website. Okay, but what is that website or what is this? It's important to actually give the hyperlink a label that not only give you the name of whatever resource you're sharing, but what kind of resource it is. The alt text, I can go on about that, but it's, you know, the basic stuff about providing alternative text to images that convey meaning to your content. Color and contrast, just make sure that you have enough oh my God, contrast between background and foreground, and that you're not using color alone to provide meaning. The reading order, that's another monster that I'm not gonna touch right now, but you can actually check the reading order in certain applications. And nowadays, all applications actually have an accessibility checker built in. That is a great start for you to like see what things are missing in there, but it doesn't check for everything. I always like to say that it does not check for everything. A lot of the things you have to check manually.
Oh, thank you, Deanna. And it looks like we've got a great little conversation going in there. Brandon, I don't know if you seem to be leading the show there with the conversation on the side around templates. I think that's so neat. Is there anything you want to share, Brandon?
Sure. Back channel is kind of my specialty. I've been a lurker for a long time. So yeah, absolutely. So let me pull this up. I think it'll let me share. We'll see. Okay, so I have really two different templates that I have created. They're very simple. They all include a lot of lorem ipsum, just because I kind of wanted to fill these out. But a lot of these are just very simple pages in Canvas to try and I'll make this a little bit bigger for folks as well, to try and give folks an idea of what they can do. Now, this is the home page. There is the syllabus page as well. There are a lot of notes for these. All of these have the Canvas guides built into them. These banners are all photographs from our photo library at UCCS. The icons were all of this is open source. It's all Creative Commons CC0. And so really all I did was kind of put together, hey, what does our syllabus look like? If we move into modules, in modules, I actually put together a guide on how to utilize the template. And so you can see the purpose and usage, right? This follows kind of the format. We've got integrated like, hey, how do I duplicate something? Hey, don't forget this. All of these guides are in here to kind of guide people through the process of utilizing this template. And then you can see we even have our contact information in here. If I continue to go down, I have examples of a huge variety of things. So these are kind of standard UCCS resources for students that we've put together. But then it's things like, hey, about the instructor, right? And so just an example, do you have to use this? No, absolutely not. But you can if you'd like to. As we go through, you can see, hey, it's another syllabus page if you don't want to use the syllabus tool in here. All of these are set up so that you can kind of go through and click next. I did separate these out. All of these at the start are accessible. I can't guarantee, because some of them do have tables, that they will be accessible after faculty are done utilizing them. But there is information about how to keep those tables accessible in here. All of these are boring. Let me get to some that are a little more interesting. Learning resources. A lot of these learning resources I tried to break up, make a little bit different, throw in some images. I do create some that are things like for videos. All of my links, you'll notice, are the natural language linking, descriptive links. And that's a practice that I model throughout here to try and get people to utilize that same kind of a thing. Now, semi-successful, I guess I would say. But I have seen at least portions of this. Maybe a little bit less with the banners, but at least portions of this adopted a lot throughout my university. Some of that I think is due to the fact that when I made this, it was right when I started in my current position, which was January of 2020. And 2 months later, 3 months later, everybody had to go remote. And so this was kind of an easy push to have people use something like a template. So I don't have chat up, but let me bring it up. So I want to make sure that.
Brandon, that is so helpful. Kathleen had a great question in there. So what are the worst usability, accessibility horrors that you have seen, and how could they have been prevented? That's a great question.
Brad, do you want to talk about our experience with Kevin?
You know, I can speak a little bit and then others could jump in, but you know, we're at CU Boulder, one of the things we've struggled with is that our focus for accessibility, for universal design, for opening up classes has really been on the student side, the welcoming experience for those students. And again, like as we just were talking about, Brandon, thanks so much for that peek there. But our focus was so focused in at CU Boulder on the students that we have faculty that are neurodiverse. We have faculty that have had COVID, faculty that have gone through school shootings, just like other students have that we have these days. And because of this background, we're realizing a lot of our systems are only thinking about accessibility on the student side. There's no accessibility in UIS systems. Students can, a faculty member that might be visually impaired cannot actually input grades. You know, like there are things that are pretty bad in the backside of some of our systems. And so I think part of our work that Deanna can speak to more of has been trying to help administration understand that accessibility or universal design is not only a student need, it's the staff and the faculty need too. We need systems that are accessible for everybody to use. Otherwise, we're limiting instructors that could be awesome from teaching, you know, just because they can't use our systems that are inaccessible. So I thought that was interesting. But Deanna, anything you'd like to speak to with that?
No, I think that covers it. I'm not only like to advocate for staff and instructors, I think it's actually to advocate for our students as well, because as an instructional designer, I work from range for 8 years, and I was the accessibility person over there, and it was a struggle to get people. And now at CU is still a struggle, and the institution that I was before that, it was a struggle as well. So I'm not blaming FRCC or CU, it's like everywhere. It's just a struggle to get higher ups and even instructors to understand what they need to take these steps from the beginning when developing a course, because I get a lot I don't have a student with a disability. I don't have anybody with a disability, or I actually had an instructor, I'm not even going to say what institution it was, who told me that he couldn't have a disabled student in his class because he will fail him. Literally told me that on my face. I was like, okay. So unfortunately, we encountered that a lot, and our hands are tied because as instructional designers, you know, we can only advise you what to do, but we cannot tell you you have to do this. If we don't have the support from administration, it's just not gonna go anywhere. So it's not only, you know, advocating for instructors and faculty, it's advocating for students as well.
So true. And I think it's that advocation is such a big piece. We had some great questions about, you know, Carrie asked about going beyond accessibility, usability. Any thoughts about how to make things really welcoming and up for a variety of students is a great question that was brought in. And we had an example of somebody going through a training where they're supposed to watch videos that weren't captioned and had hearing impairments. So it's just amazing, some of our examples. But I'm kind of curious, does anybody have things they know have worked pretty good for a welcoming environment, or maybe some benchmarks that others could scaffold upon to create welcoming environments for our students? I'm just curious if there's any other deep thoughts out there. Yeah.
And one thing about the captioning too, because Kay, I don't know where Kay go. Kay was gonna talk about.
I'm here now.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
I could come back, and
Okay.
this is me kind of doing it for someone else. You know, you're all my colleagues, so I can share this with you. It's a downloaded article, but I'll share a screen with you. And this is me talking about one of our colleagues who unfortunately is at a meeting now. The only area that I know pretty well is ADHD and visuals and making videos. And Kate and I perhaps looked at a recently made video that yeah, Kate's making a face. So you can see up on the top of see on the top of the screen Kate making the face. It was a video that had captions on it that couldn't be turned off.
Yeah, there was open captions, which isn't so bad, I guess, but it was white on white. And
I know Netflix does that all the time. Netflix all the time. You'll be seeing them do the white on white for the subtitles, but there are much better places out there, even Amazon Prime, that gives you black and the white for the subtitles. The other thing about it was that the subtitles were at the bottom, but there was information on the top. So think about your ADHD student who can't help themselves but look at the bottom, then look at the top, and then there were screenshots of very, very small things that were in text. So think about your student who has ADHD, who is trying to look at the top heading, look at the screenshot with all these different, with a massive amount of things happening from the screenshot, because it was a screenshot of an LMS and basically the content area of an LMS, and then seeing the captions at the bottom. Think about all the different focal points that were bouncing for the student there. So when it comes to our ADHD students, there are different things we have to consider. Like, for example, do you put them in that big discussion group with everybody? You know, where, and if you also have students who are OCD, who feel that they have to read every single, you know, they have to read every single response. Now, I know some instructors out there say, yes, you should read every single response, but we know that our students adjust and go, I'm not reading every post. I'll read 4 posts and I'll decide out of these 4 posts that I read, I'll respond to 2 of them. But think about a neurodiverse student who gets those instructions, who is then going to follow through with reading every single one. Those are times that you can think about dividing students into small groups. Now, this article, the reason I'm throwing it out here, it is one of our colleagues, Chris Lukes, and I'm the editor for this column to let you know. So when while he's been doing his doctoral work, I asked him if he could go ahead and write this, so that there would be a nice looking article out in Tech Trends. And Tech Trends, for anybody, the name sounds like it's just like a press magazine, but it's not. It's one of the leading educational technology and instructional design peer-reviewed journals out there. Okay, so what we wanted to do with this is to get this in the journal, so this could start being cited. So neurodiversity when learning design could start being cited. Neurodiversity, there is a critical theory out there. It's discrit theory that talks about it, because when we were talking about advocacy, if you start talking about advocacy, you can start looking at like what the 7 tenets are. And that being differently abled is really part of people's identity. And it's one of the facets of identity. And it can be combined with, other parts of their identity that are traditionally underserved and underrepresented in our courses and by our institutions. And I'm also going to throw it out there, because Brandon put about, oh, well, disability. A lot of our institutions require that you think about that, register your disability so you can get the accommodation. So we're going back to, that viewpoint that we don't trust the student when they tell us that they're having problems. And also that what we're also doing when it comes to that is that when we're designing, we're not thinking about the multitude of students who could be taking our courses. And Deanna, I know your hand is raised, so jump in and start talking. But the way you talked about your son, he's freaking brilliant. It's just that the way education is organized doesn't necessarily recognize it.
Yeah, unfortunately, even starting early from like I have studied so much since my son got diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
We put the kids in a box. Like, do you realize how kids actually start growing, and the older they get, their creativity goes away? It goes away because they get all of those little imagination things that they have, they get putting in these boxes like, no, you have to learn it this way and this way only. So we actually just pretty much killed our thought process in many aspects. And one thing that you were saying about, that the students have to say what type of disability they have to be able to get an accommodation. Not only that, but a lot of students struggle, and I learned this now with my son. The school districts, I'm sorry for the word, but they suck. They are awful. They actually don't want to identify that your son has, or your kid has a disability. They don't want to give the help. You have to fight the system so much for that to happen. So a lot of the students come to us not knowing that they have a disability. So they don't have any like doctor's notes or an actual diagnosis, and they are struggling in class and taking these little steps that might seem like maybe too much, but they're just general steps for, addressing different learners, might help these students that don't even know or recognize that they have a disability. Another thing is, a lot of these kids are tired of labels. They're just sick of labels, and they come to college, even in another state, just trying a fresh start, and they don't want that label. They just don't want it. But yet, for them to be able to get the help that they need to get the label again.
And this is a discussion, like, if some of you have been in sessions with Wendith, that I have discussions with Wendith about, and about accessibility, and that's just why I just pulled this up real quick, is for me, accessibility, including neurodiverse students, is design justice. So when, a lot of people, say diversity, equity, and inclusion, I always put it as, and also because I get giggles from it, I put it as justice, equity, diversity, inclusion. So it comes out as Jedi, right? But as far as I'm concerned, the justice part is, is also accessibility, that we design for, that we go ahead and design for our students. And I just threw this up here and then I'll stop talking. But design justice, if you go to MIT, and I put the link in there, you have to scroll down a little bit, but you'll eventually get to where it says that you can actually get this open access. If you click, I think it's buying options. Okay. Buying options.
Click on ebook.
On ebook.
Yeah, click on ebook. Yeah.
Thanks, Kate.
And
Also,
and then if you
Yeah, and the thing is that we talk about accessibility and all of this, like if it's something new. I mean, that's section 508 and 504. that has been there even before I was born. Like that has been there for a long time. It has evolved, yes, because our world now is more digital than is present, face to face, but it has been in place for a very long time. It's a federal law, it's part of our rights.
Oh, Brandon, thanks so much. You put in a good thing there, and I think, as we're talking, we're all kind of just sharing because, hey, Cheryl didn't show up, and there's always different things that we're doing, but I hope one thing that you could take away from this is the proactive nature of what we're trying to do. Everything we've said is really about that proactive. About knowing, okay, well, every learner is as variable as a fingerprint, that we know that students are going to gain knowledge in different ways based on what their preferences are and their time frame and when they can study. And so it's so useful to think about the more you can do to try to be proactive, to create environments that might help students know what's expected of them. Rubrics are another tool I haven't mentioned too much of, but so powerful as a communication tool for students to understand what's expected of them. And with a good rubric, you can say, oh, it could be written work, it could be a video or a podcast or something else to show their mastery of content. But spending some time proactively thinking about that stuff is so useful. And as somebody who is an old special ed K-12 teacher way back in the day and teaches in college courses, I just know that by thinking proactively, it really, yeah, and rubrics can major league reduce anxiety too. Yes, I like that. So there's some really good, important things there. But if the more time you put into proactive nature of things, what you're doing is you're really getting ready for those accommodation requests to come in. You're prepared with other means of students to show mastery of content. You're providing information in multiple ways so that students can get to it with the way that works best for them, which is welcoming. So I just am such a big piece on the proactive nature of things. And in our chat, I tried to put some concrete things we could do for welcoming environments that people can build on. But I am curious, as we're talking about this stuff, what do you all do to build a welcoming environment, that beginning of an asynchronous class or a hybrid class or a in-person class? What do people like to do?
Hey, Brad, this is Greg. Before people start answering that question, I just wanted to make a comment. So at least at Colorado State University, and I would say it's probably, what I'm about to say, it's probably applicable to almost every other university that's represented here in our meeting today. But it used to be, long ago in the distant past, we'd actually have conversations with faculty about accessibility, and oh my God, thanks for your 100 slides, none of which are accessible, and can we start having a conversation about that? And it's progressed, I think it's progressed to the point where we mention accessibility to faculty, but we essentially just say, you know what, whatever it is you're going to bring us, we're going to make accessible. You either aren't interested or don't have the time or don't have the skill set. So let's take that off your plate, right? And we're going to build the course that's 100% accessible, regardless of what content that you bring to us. And I think in many respects, that's relieved faculty, right? Is that, like, I don't even know what accessibility is, right? Let alone be able to deliver you accessible materials. Now you have an organization, a group that says, don't worry about it. We're going to do that for you. And from the opening page in Canvas to the 16 weeks later closing page, everything's accessible, right? And I think that's just, whether you're there yet, I don't know. That's where CSU and it's bolstered, it's communicated at the highest level of CSU. This is not, we're not talking about options here. The course will be accessible, right? Which takes a load off of everybody too, right? There's no discussion, there's no argument. It's going to be accessible. So
I do have a question about that. So you design and develop the courses as accessible as possible for the instructors, but once is in the instructor's hands and moving forward different semesters, at least that happens, at least it happened at FRCC and CU, they can actually take whatever beautiful thing we did in the back end as instructional designers and destroy it in seconds, because they start adding either new material or, linking to material that is outside, a realm and is copyrighted, and obviously we cannot change. So all of the things that you took the time to make accessible, now the next semester is not going to be that, because the instructor, redid the whole thing or whatever. How do you assure that, you continue to have this accessible content, not only this semester when you develop this new course, but, moving forward to the next semesters and the future offerings? Copy and paste from Google into Canva.
Excellent question. So, what's that term we always like to use? Academic freedom. So you are 100% correct. Once an instructor starts teaching the course, they can tear it apart if they so choose. Why they would do that, I don't know, but I'm sure it happens. And I would say, Deanna, there's we don't have a currently we do not have a follow-up procedure. We make our team still available to them in case they're like, you know, how would I make this accessible? Because I found this really cool thing, right? And we're there to help them. How many reach out, how many actually change the course is sort of the great unknown, right?
Yeah. I
But
mean, that's kind of why.
they're
Oh, go ahead.
responsible though. So if something happens, the university goes directly to that faculty member, and I don't know what that conversation is like, but I think it's something like, why did you do that? And it was
Well,
100% accessible when we gave it to you. Why didn't you reach out for assistance? I don't know what that conversation's like, but you are right. It's possible things do change.
yeah, and I mean, I don't think it's quite fair to put the blame 100% on the instructor if that's the case, just because the approach that you're explaining is, hey, I'll take it from you, I'll make it accessible. And by the way, I'm sorry for saying this, but I don't believe in anything being 100% accessible. And you know, like, I'll make it accessible and I'll hand it back over to you, but we're not really teaching the instructors how to make things accessible on their own. So if you have a program, like I used to do that at FRCC, I used to actually jump from campus to campus 3 times a week, actually providing training on digital accessibility. It was not required, but I always offered every week, just to not only take the content from the instructor, hey, I'll take it, I'll make it accessible, and I'll give it back. I will actually try to teach them what I know to a certain degree, obviously, for them to be able to do a lot of things on their own if they wanted to, like, make changes or make a new PowerPoint or, you know, adapt a new Word document or a new video. They could actually take care of that on their own and give that sense of accomplishment, and they can, you know, take care of their own content without the need of, you know, bugging an instructional designer all the time.
I did leave out that very important piece, Deanna. So we do offer a 2-week course on developing online courses, and I would say at least a quarter of that course is devoted to accessibility. So we don't just take it, do it.
Okay, awesome.
Give it back. Yeah, that's a very good point. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
We've got about 5 minutes left for this session, so I'm just gonna pick Brad. Brad, why don't you wrap it up?
Awesome. I see that we have a call out for CSU tomorrow at 9 a.m. where we will unpack our course development process more in depth. Thank you for that nice little teaser for the fun. And then it looks like we have some, before we leave, a neurodiversity hub. That's a great one. Kay, did you want to speak to that? I think you're,
yeah, I'm muted. But this neurodiversity hub gives you a lot of definitions. It does not take a medical model on it. And I'm just going to scroll down here to, if you notice, like, some of the things, even talking about them: autism, average to very high intelligence; dyslexia, improved visual processing and pattern recognition. That is an ability, okay? Even coming down to ADHD, hyperfocus, high levels of creativity and curiosity, innovativeness, high energy. If you look at these, if you go to this hub, it looks at it just how it's saying here, a combination of traits that are both strengths and challenges. So really differently abled. So for me, I guess, for my point, it is really, these students have been underserved and underrepresented. How do we stop that?
Oh, that's a great way to bring us on home, Kay. Well, thanks everybody for sticking around when our speaker didn't show, but it was sure a great time just to be able to catch up and talk and kind of see where people are. I know one thing that really got me interested in this work is when I was working with faculty and they would say, why do some students succeed and other ones fail in my class? I don't get it. Well, a lot of the times they're developing their class for that idea of the one unique student, the one, instead of thinking about the variability of their learners. And the minute you start trying to think about better structure of content, templatizing and rubrics, that brings up those students that sometimes aren't as successful in classes because they know what they have to do. All right, have a great day, everybody. And thank you, I believe it was Greg, for moderating this session.
You are welcome. Thanks, everyone. I hope you enjoyed day 1. Don't forget day 2.
Yeah.
Come to the morning show. We're going to
Morning
question
show.
paradigms.
Morning show.
Morning
Morning
show.
show.
Okay, bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you all.